All right, time is 6:02. Calling this meeting to order. This is the February meeting of the committee as a whole. We'll have roll call. John.
Here.
Myself, and why am I drawing a blank?
Brittany.
Brittany, sorry. I was gonna say Lisa. It's not Lisa. Lisa on my mind. Okay. Approval of meeting agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second. All right. John and Brenda.
Brittany.
Brittany. I'll get it right before the end of the day. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Student Staff Committee recognition.
We do not
Oh,
have any.
we do not have any today. All right, that brings us on to our 30, 60, and 90-day plan. Any comments on that?
Looks good.
You good, Brittany?
Mhm.
All right,
Yep.
we're good? I think we need to make a motion on that. All right. Certified employee compensation pay scale.
Check.
Check.
All right, so the reason I put this on here is last year we did talk about our support staff as far as a pay scale and getting things lined up with where they're supposed to be in historical context. One thing that we didn't take a look at yet was our certified staff or our teachers. And I know Leah and I have been talking about this a bit as far as our things are kind of wonky with where staff are right now as far as salaries and compensation based on experience and whatnot. And we were just trying to come up with a framework to help us level things out with our current staff, but then also have a guide for the future. And I wanted to get some different ideas to the board to kind of discuss and think about different ideas. And what I have in front of you is just a few different considerations, and it doesn't have to be that, but that's what some pay scales could look like as we look at compensation. The one on the bottom is a base one, but there's also more information that could be tied to evaluations as well. That would be the base, and then teachers that perform well via evaluation could potentially receive a higher bump in that. But that's something that we would have to take a look at and work through. And some districts do that. Some districts have a straight. Some districts don't. The other consideration that I would have for you is there's been a lot of discussion about Act 10 and the unconstitutionality of it. I know that a court in Dane County deemed it unconstitutional, but it's been put on hold for now. And I know there's a big push to get this item in front of the Supreme Court, either right before or right after the April election. So if that does happen, I mean, there's a possibility that we would be looking at this anyway. But so I wanted to start a discussion. Do we want to have something like this? Do we not? And if we do, what are some things that we want to consider in this? And just wanted to get your feedback on it. Another item that came up too is, when we start talking about other staff, and it comes into the teaching role, we have teacher assistants in our Montessori classrooms that frequently fill in as teachers, and I guess I want to get some feedback and guidance from the board as to how we handle that. Should we be treating them as a sub and get added compensation when they're filling in when the teacher's gone and we don't have a sub to fill? Or, you know, how do we handle that? So.
It's not only the Montessori. but-
Right, but it, I mean, that's the main one, but when we have that instance, you know,
I assume that we do that as a last resort.
that's correct.
I mean, rather than having a certified licensed teacher come in. If there's nobody, then we have a paraprofessional fill in. Is that
That's correct.
been the practice?
And that was one of the things with the Montessori, that when they did their training, that was the way it generally worked was that if the teacher was gone, that aide stepped up to
Mhm.
that position because they also have the training and the knowledge of the day-to-day.
So are you thinking like a per day, compensation, not across the board? So in other words, if you're the teacher of the day,
Right.
you might get extra compensation that day, but not,
R-
and, you know.
Right, and it's a consideration, but I will say that, you know, from other places that I've been, there's also, you can switch between, like a teacher sub, but do they have the licensure for it? Do we take that into consideration? And it's a little more complex in that fact, because do we have some individuals that fill in but don't have a teacher sub license? Yes. Does that matter to us, and how, I guess I'm just wanting more guidance from the board as to how we wanna deal with it, cause I feel like there's some inequity in this, you know, when we have, you know, support staff that are filling in because we don't have any subs, but what does that look like, you know, so.
And the question is, how far do we reach that
Right.
too? Because like days like, is it today, is this Monday? One
Yeah.
day last week when Lisa was going and covering in several classrooms,
Mhm.
how far do you expand that? And then my concern is the adjusting, are we adjusting our other wages?
Right.
Or are we just doing an additional bump, or how does that work? Is that?
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to me to adjust their base wage.
No, and that's what I've seen elsewhere, it isn't, it's
Yeah.
by day,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, how, do you have a sense of how often this happens?
I mean, it's not typical,
Okay.
but it's usually, you know, if we have a day with, you know, unexpected call-ins, that's usually where we kind of get hit.
Yeah.
But if we have advance notice of when individuals are gone, we don't have much of an issue, with filling those positions. So it's just kind of more so those last minute call-ins that kind of put us in a pickle.
Yeah. Well, this is probably a poor analogy, but if a head coach gets tossed from a game for technicals and the assistant takes over, I don't think, you know, wow, we gotta pay the assistant more now.
Right,
Probably
it's,
not the best analogy, but if it's infrequent,
right, cause
I don't know.
where I would say that with the coach thing, I mean, it's very similar, in the fact that the assistant coach is assisting the head coach. But where I think it's a lot different is there's a lot more responsibility and other things that go with that, jumping into the teacher role there and that supervision piece. So, anyway, I mean, there's a few different ways of looking at this, so.
So are you kind of looking at this for the next school year or this year yet, possibly? Don't know yet.
I guess I could go either way. I mean, at the latest for next year, but, you know, is that something that, you know, we want to take a look at, you know, from a certain day forward, or things that we want
I
to
think
do?
we would be better off going next year, because
Yeah.
then you would have people wanting us to.
I know, it
Yeah,
gets
yeah.
it gets into a hard
backwards,
thing with
and-
retro.
And plus,
I
it's
agree.
not something that's been built into the budget,
Yeah,
and we
that
need to
was,
build something like that into the budget.
And have the infrequent subs, are they like, hey, we need to get paid more when we take over, or is it, we're just looking at it from top down? Or?
No, it's been brought to our attention.
Okay,
you know, so
okay.
I'm just asking that question,
Yeah.
so.
I think it would make sense, like you say, man, you've already got your budget set for this year for compensation and wages. We should build that into our budget,
Budget,
or have
and-
something.
And the handbook.
yeah, and the
That-
handbook
Right,
also.
I think that's the big thing. I would say, budget-wise, we're there because we're talking about sub pay, but anyway. I
Yeah.
hear what you're saying.
Right.
It's hard to delineate, you know, we're partially through the school year, and we're gonna say, oh, well, we're gonna change right now.
Right.
Sorry, yeah, I know you did that last month, but we're only taking from here.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's where it gets kind of
Yeah.
confusing.
I think it'd be best
So-
to have a prep and preparation
Right.
for the next year, not
Right.
drop it in the middle of a year. Yeah.
Right. So that's, so that, I'm sorry.
Well, it gives everybody time, like, say, Leanne to prep and say, how often does this happen? You could look at it, you know, how do you create a flow chart to say, how often has this happened that we've had to bump a paraprofessional up to a teacher spot? And we can kind of estimate what our budget would be for that then versus.
So, yeah, we can take a look at, you know, all the information. I think the initial was just getting your take on it. Is this something that you feel like we should get more information on and pursue, put some different options together? Or,
I think it'd be
No.
good to get some different options
Okay.
put together on this and,
all right,
Do you want other schools' input too?
yeah, other
Yeah.
schools input and what would work for us for us.
okay. That would be good. I appreciate it. So, and then also just with the pay scale piece, is this, are there any questions or things that I should be looking at when we're potentially considering something of
So
this
I'm-
nature?
Well, are you gonna be able to evaluate every staff every year?
That's hard. That's hard.
Yeah, cause I'm for merit
Okay.
increases.
Yeah.
But it does put a burden on presumably the two of you to
Right.
rate every teacher.
How
and-
much staff how many teachers do we have?
And presumably paraprofessionals too, so.
The,
Or is that
the-
more?
I think that's gonna be a separate deal.
Okay.
I'll get more information on that merit base, so we can have more of that discussion on the
Yeah.
17th.
Yeah, because that would be,
But
you're right
that's-
about the tough part, how do we get,
But it doesn't have to be a full eval like we
Right,
probably should have been doing for years, but that's another topic. But, cause I know now it's kind of a cyclical, like you might
it,
do one group this year, another group the next year, and then kind of.
Right.
year or whatever.
right, so educator effectiveness, how it's set up is to be a three-year rotation.
Yeah.
So you have your summative year on year 3. New teachers, it's yearly for those first few
Yeah.
years. So, anyway, I'll be on, I hear what you're saying, and I can go back and forth, you know, merit versus non-merit. I get concerned about the merit base because, you know, when Act 10 was initially brought out, a number of school districts decided they wanted to go on a merit-based. And after some time, a number of them backed off from it because of how do you guarantee that you're objective in everything that you have? And also, does that create a rift between staff members, between meeting the cut and not meeting the cut? You know, so there's other politics involved in this. And I just want to make sure that, you know, I voice that piece, you know, as we consider different options. Like I said, I'll get more information on that merit base and how some other districts have handled it.
Okay.
So,
I have another suggestion for us doing a chart. I feel like right now we should make a chart of what we have staff at now,
Mhm.
what their education levels are, to see how much maneuvering we would have to do
Right.
to try and
'Cause
get
that-
adjusted evenly, because
that's gonna be the crucial thing.
Pretty tricky.
Right. The whole piece with this first is just taking a look at different ideas here. And then, yes, we need to do some work on this. So, it is February. That's why we're talking about it now, because contracts will be coming up very
contracts will be
quickly.
coming up here in
right?
April and May.
So, and we'll be talking about that more with, you know, increases as we look at it right now. CPI was 2.97. So it's pretty average in comparison to previous years.
Yeah.
So anyway, but all right. So we'll get more information
Yep.
on that. We'll put together a chart to see where people are and kind of do some.
Yeah, and I'm assuming
Preliminary
that 1
tests.
through 20 is based on number of years.
Right.
The steps, how long we've been here.
So you've got the steps, which are the years,
Yeah.
and then what's referred to as the lanes, which is
Yep.
referring to education level. And right now, our compensation has not been considering education level. So,
Really, we pay someone with a master's the same we're paying
that's where it has been.
comparable in years as someone with
Yes.
a straight up bachelor's.
Yes,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
correct. So,
Interesting.
There were discussions on that years back,
Mhm.
so about some of that, masters and not.
Yeah, you know, I'm just, it's automatic. Once you get your master's, boom, you get X percent of.
right. And there's different ways of handling it. Is it a permanent bump, or is it like a stipend, say, great job, thank you for doing that? I don't know, I mean, it's, how do we wanna handle that piece?
Yeah.
And I know that there's been a few topics that have come up, that's been one. Over the past year and a half, I had 3 or 4 people ask about, do we compensate for obtaining a master's? So, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other further discussion on that? All right. AGR update.
Yeah, so this is just information regarding our achievement gap reduction program and what we're currently implementing in grades K through 3. And so the gap reduction program is just implementing a few different strategies of trying to increase some of those scores that we're seeing with our students. So as you kind of go through the slides this year, our focus that we identified with some of the fall data with our students was fluency and vocabulary for our reading and math. And so that's kind of where the student or the teachers are focused in increasing some of those lower areas. So as you just kind of go through, you can see the progress that students are making, and it's been a learning experience and very interesting to see the beginning of the year and where we currently stand mid-year. The other thing too, we kind of recognized is how the Montessori and the traditional have different timelines of when they teach things and how that can also influence some of this information as well. And so that's been part of the conversation of, oh, well, we haven't done this in Children's House yet, but on the traditional side, we have touched on this. So just kind of recognizing those things as well when we review the student data.
So is the grant used for additional training for staff on hand, or is it to bring in a reading coach from CSA 12 or something like that?
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
No. They're typically, so with the AGR grant or the Achievement Gap Reduction Grant, yearly we have to report how we're using it. It could be used for class size reduction, which I don't think we have an issue with that, because it's 18 or less. Another one is individual tutoring or instructional coaching. And I know that we've used some of that for staff that are providing intervention, but then also that goes towards CSA because they provide some of the coaching for us as well. And if you want to elaborate more on a piece of that, so.
We actually paid CISA from AGR. They provide some of the services.
And we're seeing some results for our grant money, or is it too early?
I would say that in the long run, yes, we're seeing that benefit. But
Is it a state grant, federal grant?
I know it's administered through the state, that's who we're reporting to, so I can't remember
Yeah,
if
I'm
it's
trying to think
federal
if that
funds
is federal
tied to
funds.
that.
So I know when you get federal money, they like to see what the money's getting.
Right. So, yeah, I think it's eerily similar. I think it might have some federal,
I was
and
thinking
it's
that too.
administered by the state, because like I said, we have, what we're obligated to do is provide
Yes,
a goal at the beginning of the 5-year and at the end, and then yearly, we send in our goals, have a mid-year check and end-of-year check, so they're tracking that quite extensively, so.
And we've had that support since I've been here, so I feel like it's probably hard to tell the difference whether if we didn't have that support.
Oh, this is not a new grant?
No, it's not a
No,
new grant.
no.
It's
Okay.
been, it's been,
Many
it's the
years.
last 20 years, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Further discussions? Senior class trip, I'm assuming that's what these gentlemen.
Yeah, of course.
We just came for the fun.
I think most
Yeah.
of them are gonna just show up, you
Neil.
know, the game going on. Why are they in here?
Alright, so, yeah, so we're trying to get, our senior class trip approved. I'll basically just give you the who, what, and where kind of thing. We're gonna have 7 to 8 students. We're waiting on one just because it's further, you know, whatever. And, we got 2 teachers, so a total of either 9 to 10 people. The 2 teachers are Sierra Simonson and Matt Ryder, who are gonna be attending that with us. It'll be 2 nights and 3 days, and the dates are March 27th to the 29th. We'll be going to Minneapolis, Minnesota. Currently, we have $2,914 in funds, and we are putting $1,000 towards meals, whether that's us going out to eat, us going to a grocery store and bringing back food to cook in the, we're renting out an Airbnb, so whether we're cooking in the Airbnb or going out to get dinner, whatever costs, those are all gonna be covered. Cause basically we don't want any students paying for any of that stuff. And then we have $100 towards gas, we did the math, it'll be plenty to cover for going down the cities, coming back and whatnot. And, we'll be using the school van as transport. And we'll be doing other activities such as bowling, you know, cooking indoors, whatever. We're gonna be eating at a special taco joint that Guy Fieri ate at. Just kind of some fun stuff like that. And then we're gonna be doing another fundraiser here in February, the 12th to the 16th. It's a popcorn fundraiser to raise some extra money, some extra funds, just to make sure we have plenty, and that way we have enough for flowers after to buy for roses for seniors. Yeah, I mean, and then what else?
How'd you choose Minneapolis?
Cheap, a lot of things to do, I guess, really. I mean,
Probably less expensive than going to the Dells.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and we figured, you know, instead of renting a bunch of like a hotel things with room for everybody, you get a big Airbnb, you know, get a better bond with everybody, and you're all hanging out in a house together, and I think it's a better bonding activity than just being in a hotel, you know.
Yeah.
Something different, I guess.
Okay. Only 8 of you going, is the rest of the class just choosing to?
Yeah, so the reason I said 7 to 8 is so right now that's official because Clyde, I don't know if you guys know him, but he was the only one that's a maybe. Everyone else said yes or said no, and I asked the people who said no about 6 different times to make sure, you know, I said this could be a really fun trip, you know, you don't want to miss out on it, one-time thing, you know, type of deal, and he said no, it's okay, we're good, so all right, you know, so.
So these are students that are enrolled in school
And
full-time?
online.
And,
And online.
okay,
Yes.
One online.
Yeah, we only have one online person that's actually doing it, so.
okay.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, we made sure to ask Eagles Academy, traditional, and online, make sure everyone's involved, try to get everybody. So there's still a senior class, just different learning,
Yeah.
you know, whatever.
Different places.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Are you looking for an approval or?
Yeah, I guess,
That is our prerogative, we have a quorum, and so that decision could be made tonight, or how soon do you need approval?
The next regular board meeting is in about 2-3 weeks, so.
I mean, it'd be nice to get it sooner the better, I guess, just so I can,
They can start
book an
booking
Airbnb, places are closing up fast, so that's the only reason I would need it quick. Be better for that alternative, but other than that, there's no other thing I'm waiting on, so.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, okay, John and Brittany.
All right.
Sounds like fun.
Thank you,
All
guys.
those in favor? All those in
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Have a
Good
great
job,
trip.
guys.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you for the information.
Stay out of trouble.
Of course.
Okay. All right, next is family and customs ed base teachers, job descriptions.
Check. So, based on the decision last month in January, I put together a job description for this position, just for consideration and approval. Once I get that approval, I can post for this position.
So I have a question on a term we
Yeah.
used. Culturally responsive instructional strategy. What
So that,
in layman's terms?
right, so it's looking at different ways that we're providing instruction that's taking into account Native American culture and some of the techniques and strategies they use for consumer ed, cooking, or.
Is that
so.
to comply with Act, whatever it is, as well, or is that?
No, I think it's just good practice. I mean,
Okay.
it's not necessary for Act 31, which is Native American stuff, yeah. But I think just where we're at and the heritage in our area, I think it's wise to do that, so.
So an applicant wouldn't necessarily have to be well versed in that, but they'd have to be able to know this is something we want you to address,
Right.
instruct on,
Yep.
get smart about it.
Check.
Would they, like, the actual curriculum, is that something we would still provide, or they're go develop your own?
So, right, so we would have to work on putting that curriculum together. It'd be nice to have that teacher with us, or that person with us, to truly develop it. So, not saying that we can't rely on other sources to get it, but it'd be good to have that person in there.
Okay, so are we looking at hiring over the summer for the fall term?
What I would say is, I would like to post that as quickly as possible in order to try to attract candidates, because we're getting into the prime season for
Okay, it's still for
advertising.
starting in the fall.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
it'll be starting.
That's correct.
Usually this is the time to post because teacher contracts are coming up, so some teachers might be looking for
Right.
positions or college grads that are coming out. We'll start looking now. So,
And the only acceptable degree then would be a family and consumer.
That,
factors.
right, that's what we would be looking at.
There's no
There,
law
right,
to that.
so, is there a potential that you could have someone on emergency license has most of the qualifications? Yes, you could, but it still requires that license.
So that's a separate licensure?
It is.
Consumer education?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
The nearest programs that offer that is Stout and Stevens Point.
How much additional would that be over a regular teaching?
But it's an initial, so
Okay.
it would be the same as any other secondary teacher, so.
I'm just wondering if we had applicants and said, you know, well, okay, I could work toward that, or is that
I think we would have to take that into consideration as people apply, so.
Okay.
so.
Approval for him to.
So that's it. That's truly your call. If we want to take a look at that, if there are any questions,
Next
things that
month.
we need to address. 2 weeks is not gonna hurt significantly, but I'd
Okay.
say we will do it as soon as we can, so. And if there's other things on here that you want to change or edit, you know, I can certainly, or we can certainly work on that.
Where did this come from? Is it like some other school using this
Well,
Is there a
I,
standard?
right, so there's a lot of it that's standard from stuff that I've had previously. And then also, you know, looking at other job descriptions from other districts,
Okay.
trying to put it all together, so.
Keith, I'd say your call. Do you wanna wait for the next board meeting, or are you happy to make a motion?
I think it'd be good, my personal opinion, I think it would be good to let the other board members see this at the next meeting. This is to me like, we just gotta see this.
Okay.
So if it's not, I mean, but I do agree that this is the prime season, so, but I think 2 weeks is gonna make a
Okay.
difference. We can throw it out there by March.
Works for me.
Yeah. Brittany, good with that? All right, so do I. All right. This will be held over next, regular board meeting. Foreign language class options, middle school, high school.
All right. I put this on there, it's more of just getting some awareness and trying to think about different ideas here. Wisconsin state statute says we need to offer that possibility for foreign language in the middle school for sure. But then, as long as we're talking about it, you know, what does it look like for high school? I know we have the online options, and just making sure that, you know, we're aware of some of the options. You know, are there other options that we want to try to consider in this? And understanding you've got a budget and trying to stay within that as well. But more so, it's providing that information that, according to statute, we need to offer that possibility to them. So,
Do we currently have an online option for students?
yes.
Has anybody taken us up on it?
So there are some students at the high school level that are taking a foreign language.
Through like Pearson or some other?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. Because there are different options with our NWEX program as well as our online, so.
How many students ballpark do it now?
I would have to get that I don't know exactly for sure how many do that, so.
I mean, I would assume not enough to
I
hire
would say more
full-time,
like
right?
3,
Right, no,
5.
yeah, there's, we don't have the capacity to
Right,
hire
and then you
full-time
can, I
person.
assume online too, you can pick your language of choice, it's not
That-
gonna be Spanish.
Right,
And German.
that is correct.
Yeah.
Because I think one of our students is participating in French,
Okay.
so,
So we're meeting that requirement now?
high school
High
wise.
school, okay.
We are not yet at the middle school. I think a few years back, there was something that was put together and then somehow it fell by the wayside.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure that we're aware that there's a requirement and then we're going to try to be coming up with ways to meet that.
Okay. And one way
option,
would
so.
be to do the same we're doing for high school now.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
So,
Do we have someone that facilitates the online stuff?
um,
Strictly, they just go in, log in?
right, so, with a previous district, at the middle school level, it was an online and they had a paraprofessional in there to, conduct the supervision piece, so that was it.
Because if it's not mandatory, I assume the kids that take that are sufficiently motivated to work through it.
I would hope so, right.
I mean, I would.
And, right, and I would say that there are other schools that it's just part of a rotation of stuff that they're taking. So they don't have it for the entire quarter, but
Yeah.
on a 6-week rotation, they're going into foreign language, and then they're going into something like FACE or tech ed or something of that nature. So,
So the
however
state
we
doesn't
do
mandate that we provide a class to every kid in 3rd grade or something. It's just an option.
The language is kind of murky, but you're correct.
Okay.
When it comes down to layman terms, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
So,
Be another mandate without money.
plenty of that going on, that's for sure. So,
Okay, yeah, to me, if what works for high school could work for middle school,
so we'll try to put some stuff together there and take a look at what that looks like here.
Okay, further discussions? Okay, that brings us on to district essential ELA standards.
All right, so as we talked about last year and then getting into this year, our main focus this year was to identify essential standards in ELA and reading and unpack those standards and develop a solid scope and sequence of instruction. Because when we take a look at the Wisconsin State standards with ELA and reading, there's just so many, there's so much that a teacher can't go deep into instruction if they're trying to cover every single standard. So what we're trying to do is to prioritize our standards by grade level, but then across the district. So it made sense, and that we're working together to provide the best instruction possible for our students. And that's what we've got here is a recommendation on our essential standards for ELA and reading for the district. I know there's been a fair amount of work with all the teachers to take a look at what are they currently teaching and what are the standards that they're hitting and really focusing on, and what is it that they feel is essential for our students to know by the end of the year for each grade level. And that's where this all kind of comes together and working together as a team to come up with aligned standards.
So this is a specific Solon Springs standard proposal?
Right, that is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
In other words, what we feel works best here.
Right.
Check.
That's what it's coming down to, put together by our staff.
Yep.
Any discussion?
It's pretty comprehensive, for sure, so, got a lot of work went into it.
Yes, it
Absolutely.
is.
Staff has done a great job with responding, because it takes a fair amount of work and to crunch, not only identifying these essential standards, but unpacking them. When I say unpack, meaning understanding exactly what it means to achieve that standard, and what are the sub-steps to get to that piece, or to that proficiency, and then also putting it together into a logical scope and sequence. So it's a year-long process, so.
And we've done this at each grade level? All the way through C?
That's
Yeah,
correct,
okay.
yep.
With their table of contents, 1 through 12.
Yep, so all have been involved in this matter, so.
Sounds like a good collaboration and teamwork. Excellent. All right. Any further discussion? Okay, start college now.
All right, this is kind of a placeholder. I thought maybe we'll have applications here at a regular meeting for Start College Now. But just once again, what is Start College Now? It is an opportunity for our students to take courses through technical college system, and the way it sits, our approval this month would be for students wanting to take tech school courses in the fall. So it's always a 6 month ahead of when they're actually taking it, so.
Yeah.
So just wanted to prep that piece. The other piece that Linda and I have determined when we started talking about Start College Now is that open enrollment students, that goes back to the resident district versus, goodness gracious. The other, why am I blanking this out? The other program, because this is with the tech colleges, with their four-year colleges, there's a very similar program, but it doesn't matter if they're open enrolled or our students. If they're in our district, we pay for those courses, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Slightly different, but it's the same process, so.
Okay, so the credits you'd earn at Tech School.
Yes.
Northwood Tech,
Mhm.
they're good for Northwood Tech.
Yes.
What if they decided senior year, well, I think I'm actually gonna go to UW Superior?
Right.
Are those transferable, or are they?
A lot depends on what the course is. There is some transferability between the tech schools and the four-year schools. But it's also dependent on what it is and where they're going, so.
Okay, well, I think it's incumbent upon us to make the students, make it very clear.
Right.
If you're enrolling in Northwood Tech, it may be a Northwood Tech credit only.
Right.
Or certain ones may transfer.
Mhm.
I mean, it's always, that's what my problem with some of these, it's always been a little bit of a roll of the dice as to what schools, if any, will take these credits.
Right. I think one thing that I'm feeling more confident about is the fact that Mr. Anderson is, our school counselor is doing a very good job in meeting with students
Yeah.
to truly narrow in on what do they see as their career path and trying to problem solve what's the best options for it. Because if you're not having those discussions like, oh, I think I want to take this, you don't fully grasp as to
Right.
what the repercussions are as far as where you want to go and how you can use that, so.
I'd hate to see a student earn 8 credits and then decide to go to UMD and they just kind of,
Shake their
Right,
head.
right.
it's nice that you have that, but it's not gonna count.
It's not benefiting them,
Yeah.
yeah. So, no, I'm with you there. And I think that's where having him meeting with students and going through that is a benefit, so. All right. Anything else you want to share?
No.
He has been
Yeah,
meeting
he's
with,
been doing a really great job.
Good.
meeting with students in classes and going through that, so.
Preparing for the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay.
All right. And I know we'll have some applications in 2 weeks. He assured me of that, so.
All right, joint EWGB and BOE, Board of Education meeting.
Yes, so the governance board has been asking about the potential of having a joint meeting, and I wanted to put that out there about a proposed date and time to have a joint meeting, because I think it's wise for both boards to have that open dialogue as to how do we handle certain things when we, for instance, they have some say over how things should be happening in our charter building, our charter schools rather, and that also deals with staffing and whatnot. But then the final say comes here.
Right.
So I think it's wise for us to have that open dialogue and have a common ground as to how we best manage this
Approach this.
together. Yeah. So anyway, they had a few things that they wanted to talk about and just start this process. So
And you're looking in March.
that was my proposal.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
because I think that would provide enough time to
So it'd be like a
Coordinate
joint regular
stuff.
meeting or a separate meeting where we're coming together, discussing things.
As I would see it, it would be a joint meeting, so we would still have to post it with some agenda, but the sole focus of that meeting would be that joint
That
collaboration.
collaboration.
Yep, and then we would transition into our regular board meeting at 6.
Okay.
So,
basically a special meeting for an hour. And then-
Right, right, so,
No, that does make sense.
and that way you guys, it's the same evening that you have to be here, so it's not an additional evening.
Right.
I know some people like to spend additional evenings elsewhere, but I figured it probably wasn't here, so anyway.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so, I mean, that's something that,
All right.
can put out for them, so.
Okay, nothing for closed session?
Yeah, there is.
Oh, there
Yes,
is.
yes, we do. So, got a couple items there.
Okay, well, okay, we will convene into closed session in pursuit of Wisconsin statute 19.85 to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation date of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Can I have a motion to go into closed session?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
John and Brittany? Okay, we're in all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're in closed session.
See what great power we wield.
Yes.